Predator, Badlands. What Disney needs to learn from this and apply to Star Wars. After two critically acclaimed straight-to-streaming entries with 2022's Prey and this June's animated feature Predator, Killer of Killers, Disney is finally bringing the Predator franchise back to the big screen with Predator, Badlands. Director Dan Trachtenberg has been at the helm of all three films, while also having a hand with the story. Trachtenberg has earned story credit while working with screenwriters Patrick Azon on Prey and Predator, Badlands, and Micho Robert Rutter on Killer of Killers, and has also produced both Killer of Killers and Badlands. To say that Trachtenberg has revitalized the franchise is a bit of an understatement. He's essentially brought it back from the dead with a trio of critically acclaimed films. The filmmaker doesn't seem to be done with the franchise either, hinting at an idea for a third Predator film he came up with after Prey was such a hit on Hulu. Trachtenberg had just one film to his credit, 2016's 10, Cloverfield Lane, before Disney took a chance on him, one that is about to pay off. Predator. Badlands took in a strong $4.8 million from Wednesday and Thursday sneak preview screenings, en route to becoming the #1 movie at the box office this weekend. While the Predator franchise is nowhere near as massive as the Star Wars franchise, there are lessons to be learned from Trachtenberg's approach that could be applied to Star Wars. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is, still to this day, supremely impressive for what it was able to pull off on such a grand scale, but it has also spoiled fans. Now anything that's part of a franchise is expected to be thoroughly connected to the entire amalgam, but that's part of what I love about Trachtenberg's films. Besides the fact that they are set in the same universe, there's no real connection to any of them whatsoever. Prey is set in the year 1719 in the northern Great Plains, while Predator, Killer of Killers is an anthology film with stories set in 841 Scandinavia, 1609 Japan, and 1942 North Africa. Predator, Badlands is set in an untold year in the far distant future, with the only connection to all these stories being the Predators themselves, aka Yorkshire. If this were another franchise, we'd probably expect the main Predator Badlands character Dimitrios Shoustakalomatangi, to be some sort of blood relation to past Predators, but that's not the case. Perhaps it's as simple as the implication that the Yorkshire has been around since, apparently, the dawn of time itself, that there is no real need to connect every Singe story, because their existence is already so connected to everything anyway. Still, watching all of these one-off stories with no connection to anything else has been quite refreshing. The Star Wars sequel trilogy undoubtedly introduced a slew of new characters, but many fans found their arcs underwhelming, like Rey, Daisy Ridley, being the granddaughter of the somehow returned Palpatine, and Finn, John Boyega, left severely underdeveloped by the time the trilogy had come to a close. There were new stories and new characters, but the constant connection to Skywalker saga felt strained. While Star Wars busies itself with making sure there are as many connections to Disney's $4 billion investment in Lucasfilm as humanly possible, Trachtenberg is expanding the Predator franchise lore in thoughtful and meaningful ways without explaining how Dec is connected to the original Predator or whatever. It seems, though, Star Wars may be correcting course a bit. The Mandalorian found a way to tell new tales with new characters while honoring the franchise, and the upcoming Star Wars Starfighter movie doesn't appear to have any connection to the Skywalker saga whatsoever, though we'll find out for sure on May 28, 2027. Hopefully, Star Wars can find a way through without constant connections to the glory days. The biggest franchises in box office history all have one thing in common: a visionary with a clear plan ahead. It could be a producer-turned-studio executive like Marvel's Kevin Feige. It could be a director who has a hand in the screenplay process like Avatar's James Cameron. Or producers like former James Bond caretakers Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. The Star Wars sequel trilogy clearly suffered from the lack of any kind of overarching plan spanning the three movies, since all three films lack the cohesive chemistry of the original and the prequel trilogies, both guided by George Lucas. Lucas didn't even direct the second and third movies of the original trilogy, but they all worked because of his plan. While Dan Trachtenberg doesn't seem to be pulling all of his films together, he has a vision for exploring unexplored parts of this universe, and thus far it's paid off with three brilliant films that fans and critics alike have praised. Disney clearly trusts Trachtenberg, doling out a $105 million budget for Predator, Badlands, the biggest in franchise history. Still, $105 million is roughly half of what most Star Wars movies cost, but if Disney truly wants to get Star Wars back on track, they'll invest in a producer or filmmaker who has a plan for new, original stories to further explore the galaxy far, far away we all know and love, not just to rehash it any further.